So the analogy of if your gas pedal stuck down, but the body's running out of fuel is a pretty accurate identifying, because here's what happens. When you really look at the details, what goes on is your body is thinks it's starving. It's what it thinks it's going on. So what happens is it's going to run that motor. It's going to be like, hey man, give me more fuel, give me more fuel, give me more fuel. And it's just floor to the floor thinking that. The reality, there's nothing in the tank, because every time you eat something, it is no longer going into energy where the body needs it. It's going right into storage, which is belly fat. That's why so many people that are stressed out have belly fat, is because it gets dumped right there. So the more belly fat you have, the more relational you have to inflammation in the body, diabetic traits. It's all because sleep apnea, which is sleep patterns. So you have all these different things that kind of start to spill over. But when it's doing that, your brain is in a space of survival. And as long as it thinks it's surviving, it's going to continue to give it everything else it needs along the way, which is cravings, tired, fatigue. It's going to drive all those symptoms where your body's like, that's why people are like in that dysregulatory space. They're hungry, they eat, they crash, they're hungry, they're tired, they have energy, they're up, they're caffeine dependent. All these kind of things drive into that because there's dysregulation in the body, and the body just is confused between the gas pedal and what's in there.
So high cortisol signals the body to.
So what the question is, why does visceral fat or your belly fat get affected so bad by cortisol? Well, it's a twofold issue, right? So the adipose tissue is really considered a gland in some ways. It produces its own hormones, it creates inflammatory responses. So it's a very different type of fat there. But what's interesting about the adipose tissue and your visceral fat, which is around your organs, is that the visceral fats have more receptors for cortisol. So what happens is it's now being more sensitized to hearing it and seeing it out in the body. As long as it has that, it's going to attach, attract. And therefore, this is one of the things we do consistently in our practice. We'll put you on a machine that's called an InBody or some kind of metric to look at your fat, water weight, all those type of metrics. And we look at visceral fat in that. And it's amazing how many people come in off the charts on visceral fat. It's because they're dysregulated through their metabolic balance, and it's going to keep attaching to that area of visceral fat and adipose tissue. So those are two very common things. And on the backside of that, if your liver enzymes are above 30 in your marker, which is not clinically what the standard labs say, but anything above 30, you're in fatty liver. And so this is where people don't understand that you could be walking around normal, but you have fatty liver, and that's because you're dumping all this visceral inflammation into the liver.
Last thing to end it. So action or a wrap up. So what should people, if they take away one step from today, what would be an action?
Right. So one action step you can take away from today, it's hard to put it into one, so I can maybe give you a handful of things that are you should look for, right? Number one thing you can control the most is your diet. Number two is your stress or your the way you handle stress. All right, so you can control those things, right? Number three is understanding what exactly is going on with your body. I'm a big believer of looking at urine hormones and looking at your cortisol and adrenals from that perspective, because it's metabolized, what's been used. And once you understand that, you can really see a rhythm of whether most people still make cortisol. They don't realize that. Unless if you're tanked out of cortisol, you have a whole other problem. But most people are making cortisol. They're just dysregulated between the three systems and the brain. It doesn't understand all that. So now you have to reset that. And the only way to do that is through diet, sleeping right, like I said, eating the right supplements or having the right supplements is really important. And there's ways to support the adrenals and there's ways to take down the adrenals. And each one of those things is very specific to each person. So it's kind of hard, but I think one of the top things you can do is actually look at a snapshot of what's going on inside you so you understand what side of the fence you're on so you can actually handle it and correct it the right way.